Welcome everybody to the Ishtar Channel podcast.
Hey, Joe.
Hi. We're loving having this opportunity of being together. A big topic that plays a huge role in the teachings with the masters. And we would like to talk to it today and break it down a little bit and make it accessible to often how we relate to this teaching in everyday life and bring up some of the misunderstandings that come with it. It's the teaching of unconditional love and coming into a deeper understanding of that consciousness. What does the consciousness of unconditional love actually hold? The masters teach us that unconditional love is a 3-step process.
It is.
Do you want to talk to those 3 steps?
They also tell us that unconditional love is something that humans find very difficult to access for the very reason that we are very emotional or very mental, and we work a lot through our either emotional body or our mental body. And that's not a judgment on humanity. It's simply where we are at this time. But the aspiration and the potential is that we can come into unconditional love, which is very much a high frequency way of being. So it's certainly not saying that I hold unconditional love, because I don't, or that Joe does, or, you know, I'm sorry, but even though you may think you do, unconditional love means love without conditions of any sort. That means no agenda, no expectations, no beliefs, no right or wrong, none of that. So, and this is where we get very confused with unconditional love, especially in the spiritual world. The masters have told us time and time again that unconditional love requires 3 steps. Firstly, it requires you to acknowledge and honor what is, no matter what it is. So whatever energy you are looking at, you are asked to acknowledge and honor it for what it is. It's not saying you're judging it. It's not saying you're wanting it to be something else. It's simply asking you to acknowledge and honor what it actually is, whatever it is. And that requires your powers of observation, doesn't it? It requires your ability to connect with energy without judgment, without beliefs, just simply connecting in with the energy, whatever it is. The next step, if that step's not quite enough, the next step is to come into an acceptance of what that energy is, no matter what it is, to let go any need to fix it, change it, make it the way you want it to be. Whatever that is for you, is to let go all your attachments, all your expectations, and simply to accept what is in front of you, whatever that might be. That could be your own energy, a shadow of you, a shadow of someone else, whatever it is. And to accept that it exists. It's not asking you to love it, to embrace it, to bring it into your life, to make it your own, to, you know, change it to whatever it needs to be. It is simply asking you to accept that it exists. This energy vibration exists. Yeah. No attachments, no conditions. It exists. And lastly, just to embrace it with your light. Simply to embrace it with your light. Once again, it doesn't ask you to bring it home with you. It doesn't ask you to bring it into your field or into your life. It simply says embrace it with your light. So embrace it with your light. Just put your light around it and honor it. And then let it be. Doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. But the last step is to embrace it with your light. Now, it's not embracing it with your ego light. It is calling on the light of your divine presence to embrace it. So you let go any control in that and just call. I call to my light, my divine presence to embrace this, not to fix it, not to change it, not to heal it, simply to embrace it. Now, I know, as I've just said all of that, there will be parts of you that are going, well, no, I can't do that, or I would have fixed this, or that's really hard. Because it is really hard. Because we automatically respond from our emotional, our mental bodies to whatever we meet, whether we're meeting something inside ourselves or whether we're meeting something outside ourselves in someone else. We automatically respond from mental and emotional bodies. And so that makes it very difficult to really do the steps of unconditional love. I know, and I think Jo knows this too, that when I have tried to practice it, and I practice it from a place of acceptance of what is, when I come into acceptance of what that energy is, no matter what it is, if I don't like it, don't want it, whatever it is, I get a deep clarity for me about what that energy is and why it's come to me in my life, whether I need to keep engaging with it or whether I can let it go. You know, it just simply because love doesn't mean you have to keep holding it to you, bring it in and hold it to you. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about unconditional love. And so very much in the spiritual world, as Jo knows, that we tend to get involved in this belief that we have to hold everything with some emotional love to be spiritual.
So I think it's really important to start to have an understanding and a differentiation between what we put into the word love as a human being, and as an experience of being human, and what we put into the word love when we start to talk about consciousness.
That's right.
And the flow of consciousness.
Yes, that's a very good point.
And even when you step into the spiritual realm of starting to connect more to your own consciousness, where you may be exposed to more teachings around unconditional love.
Yes.
I've also witnessed, because I've witnessed it within myself, still a confusion.
And there is.
Around what, you know, even when you're starting to engage with a deeper understanding of the word love and what that really means from a place of intention, consciousness, energy with intention. And I found myself, you know, in practice of that mastery, because it is, clearly it's a mastery. And as Ishtar keeps reminding me, it'll be a mastery for many incarnations.
That's right.
You know, not just this one. One of the, or I say a couple of things that I learned about myself in starting to practice those 3 steps. I realized that step 2, coming into acceptance of that energy, was really challenging for me, because I didn't realize that a part of me was thinking that to accept something means that you have to like it or agree with it.
No.
Otherwise, how can I accept it?
That's right.
So that was a real roadblock for me for a long time, until you turn around and you looked at me and you go, you know, you don't have to agree with this energy. In fact, you don't even have to like it. But you have to accept that it exists. Wow, that was a bit of a...
And that's the learning the masters have taught us, is it? And that's the difficulty, because we think we have to, you know, come to that place with it, that it has to be...
You have to feel good about it.
Yeah.
To be able to accept it.
Sometimes we don't. We don't feel good about it at all sometimes, but we have to accept that this energy exists.
Yeah.
You know, on the planet, in ourselves, in somebody else. It's not to judge it and say it shouldn't exist. And sometimes we may do that, but we have to accept that it does exist.
And when Ishtar is speaking to, you know, the energy, you know, that energy could be manifested in someone's behavior.
Yeah.
It could be manifesting in someone's belief. You know, how they think. So when we say, you know, we have to accept that that energy exists, it's accepting, you know, someone's decision or someone's, you know, behavior. We might not like that behavior, but that's how they're behaving.
It's the same thing. You've got an angry person. They come up to you in the street. They're really angry. They're seething with anger. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you don't have to do much to acknowledge, wow, this is a really angry person. They've got a lot of anger in them. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of anger standing in front of me right now. So, you know, it's so obvious that there's a lot of anger standing in front of me right now. So you're acknowledging that. You're honoring that this being is very angry. Yeah. Now, if you go into the thing, it was there, I'm going to go and hug this being and change that anger or whatever else, you could be putting yourself in jeopardy. You could be putting yourself in a place of, you know, they might danger. Yeah. So you are being asked to accept that this is very angry energy. Yeah. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to go and I'm going to change this angry energy? I'm going to go and hug that person and make them calm down. You know, they don't want to calm down. They're angry. They're in their anger. It's a choice they've made. And they might be seething. It could be at you or it could be at someone else, but they're in front of you right now. So coming to acceptance that this is angry energy and accept what it is. You may not like it. Of course you won't. Nobody likes angry energy in our face. But you will get the clarity, and the clarity most probably will be walk away now. Yeah? Walk away now. Walk away. Listen to the clarity you're given. Don't listen to your mind or your emotions or your belief that this person must change their energy right now. Walk away. Do what you're asked for your guidance. And then when you're at a distance, then just send your divine presence to embrace that anger with light. You don't, not to change it, not to fix it. There's no agenda. You're just asking your divine presence to embrace that energy of anger with light. Because that energy of anger is a frequency that sits not just in this particular person at that particular moment. Maybe the next day you'll meet them and they'll be like, hi, how are you? You know, and have no anger. But in that moment they do. And that consciousness sits in the heart of humanity. You know, it could sit in you tomorrow. It could sit in someone else. It sits when somebody wants to create a war. You know, it sits when you're not happy about what somebody's done. It sits, that consciousness comes into it when somebody wants to go out and terrorize somebody else. You know, that energy exists. And we're being asked to recognize it. And it will exist within ourselves. Because it's consciousness that exists in the heart of humanity. You're being asked to acknowledge that it exists and honor that it exists, then accept that it is. You know, we don't really want it there. We don't like it being there. But at this point in time, that angry consciousness exists in the heart of humanity. And so walk away, take yourself out of danger, and just simply send that angry consciousness that sits in the heart of humanity light from your divine presence. Not to change or fix or do anything else, but just to hold it.
So let's come to, from that, probably one of the most important first steps, because often we go to unconditional love, and what we try to do with that is hold it for somebody else.
Oh, yes. Right.
And we miss ourselves out in that step. And as we know, we can't do for another what we haven't been able to do for ourselves. So an unconditional love of oneself is a hard enough project to be working on.
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. You know, you've just heard us explain what unconditional love is, and it's, you know, it's not easy. Because of our beliefs, because of our attachments to our expectations. And of course, the hardest thing to do is love ourselves with unconditional love. Because there's lots of energy that we have that we don't like. We don't want it to be there.
And so we don't want to honor it.
No, not at all. We don't want to acknowledge it. We want to lock it in the cupboard, throw away the key, forget it exists, hide it under the carpet, you know, those sort of things.
So then that leaves us experiencing more of non-acceptance of ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, because that's what happens. We create consciousness of non-acceptance of ourselves. and the inability to acknowledge and observe the energy that is flowing through us at any given moment, because we don't want to look at it. So we disconnect from ourselves. And that comes from that belief that we should be different.
So if you're still listening with us, then what we invite you to is to begin to consider the word love and consider what you've projected onto that word and what conditions you've projected onto that word. And we then invite you to consider that there is another vibration, another frequency.
Yes.
That holds a far higher intention.
Yes, it does.
And that higher intention, one of the, I'm trying to share a few things that really landed for me as an insight, because, that's really the only place I can share from is my own experience here. But when I started to understand that the higher intention of love doesn't hold an emotion, it doesn't actually hold a charge.
Doesn't hold any charge, it's neutral.
And I started to become curious about that concept. And I started to become curious about, okay, well, if love, if the consciousness, the intention isn't about an action or an emotion, then how does that make me feel?
Yes, that's a good question.
And what are my thoughts around that? And how does that then change my interaction with that energy? So I'd love us to leave, that's an invitation from me for you to perhaps consider. I'd love us to leave our audience with an invitation from yourself as to what next step on this concept that we're sharing. And it's big.
It's a big concept, yeah.
There's many layers that we could go into around it, but
around love. I feel the invitation really is let's just start with the first step of being able to acknowledge and honor what is, particularly within ourselves, because that's probably the most difficult step. We often aren't that honest with ourselves because we don't want to be, because we don't want to acknowledge what we're seeing or what is part of us. Why? Because we judge it, or it has been judged by our parents, our mother, or whatever, when we've been children. So we've been brought up to judge it. So the last thing we want to do is to acknowledge and honor that it's there at that time. And so just begin to really observe honestly, without emotion, without judgment, just what's coming up for you. And really just acknowledge it and honor it. I honor that you're there. I love to bless it. I love to just bless it and just sit with it. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to say, fine. This is the energy that sits within me. Many reasons why it's there. I may not know all of them. I've created this consciousness for whatever reason. It has served me for some reason. It may not be serving me now, but I'm going to acknowledge it in this moment, that it is there, and I'm going to honor it, and I like to give it a little blessing.
I love that. I love that. Because often we think we have to understand its purpose in order to honor it or accept it.
Yes, but we don't. We need to just acknowledge it, that it's there, be observant of it, be the observer of the self. And that's often more difficult. You know, there's a lot of talk these days of mindfulness, and I actually like to encourage students to be not mindful at all, but to be conscious but not mindful. But that's another story for another time. But that observation of self is being conscious of your energy. Become awake and conscious of your energy, not through illusion or distortion of how you want it to be, but through the truth of what is in this moment. Yeah. And I can tell you that is not an easy exercise to start practicing.
No.
And it takes time. And I'm still working with that one.
Oh.
You know, definitely working with that one. I'm on step 1.
I think anyone who's breathing
Yes.
is still working with that one.
Well, I don't know whether there's a lot of people consciously working with it, to be honest, but I think it's a great thing to be consciously working with it. It's coming up for us, but then we deny it, push it away, don't want to look at it, lock it away, whatever, because of for all the many reasons, judgment, beliefs, you know, all those things, not the same as somebody else, you know, all that stuff. But just start observing it without judgment, without making any emotional or mental choice about it. Just observe it. Let it be. Just let it be. And really honor that it is there, it is being, and it's part of your being, and bless it. And see how that goes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to being with you again soon.
Yes, we do. Blessings, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Blessings.